Hello and welcome back to the sim. In this one we're jumping in Teterboro with the HJet version 2. We're going to jump straight into the jet. We've already powered it up and we're going to go through PFD settings. So let's go ahead, jump in and cover the PFD here in version 2. Jumping inside, we go straight into the PFD. We've got it set up with the default config when you first load version 2. So we can go through everything together. So when we look at the PFD, there are some new things we get to do. First up is PFD Map Settings. So on here, if you click on the PFD Map Settings, everything is grayed out because we haven't selected a layout. So first up, when you go into the layout, you can choose to have the map off, convert it to an inset map so that your map is on the left hand side and you keep this as an HSI, or you can do the Garmin HSI map where it combines the HSI into the same place that the map is shown, so you're overlaid on an HSI map. Now that you've set that, you'll see that other options have come up for the map details. So if we come back, we can also now adjust our map range. So that can all be done from here on the plus minus keys once you've enabled it. With those settings, you can adjust the detail level. So you can adjust your declutter and you'll see a little thing pops up to show you the declutter level that you're set to. And as we remove things, they will disappear from our map. You can add the traffic layer. When you do that, you'll see that the traffic diamond is available and it's letting you know that traffic is active. Currently, terrain is set to off. You can enable terrain, so we can go to absolute terrain, which gives us the scale based on levels of height, or you can go to relative, in which case this is going to show you based on relative to you. Dark is safe, red starts to get into an issue because that is above you or within a dangerous level of a few hundred feet. There is the Datalink settings. Nothing is active in this, however it's there for continuity with standard Garmin manuals. You can also overlay the Connects weather, so that's going to draw the visual radar of actual precipitation, and that will show up on your map as well if you so choose to have it. So those are your layout settings for the map. The Traffic Inset does allow you to change it and bring in traffic as an inset. And the moment you bring traffic into the inset, it will revert you back to the HSI. If we turn it off, you'll see that you now have to go back into PFD settings, back into map, and re-add your HSI map. So just be aware that you do lose your full map when you do the quick traffic inset to see it here. You have additional PFD settings in that you have your first button being the overlays, so you can come in and we can enable synthetic terrain. So now we have our synthetic vision, and you have the horizon heading, which if you enable that, you'll see that every 30 degrees it will show up on the horizon line. You can adjust your PFD between full or split mode. In split mode, it gives you an additional pane. That additional pane can be controlled. What you need to do for that, though, is you come over to your GTC and you have to make sure to send the pane control over to it. So here with the pane control now active, you can see that the blue is highlighted here. So if we come over here and you were to select, say, weather, that is going to put the weather display in there. We go to checklists, it's going to give us our checklists. Or of course, we can put a map, in which case we can go back to the HSI. Next up is you can enable the bearing pointers. So with your bearing pointers, they're going to show up here and it will tell you what is currently tuned in. Now here you'll see Nav1 DME1, but if you have a VOR tuned in for Nav1 or Nav2, you will also see here the appropriate DME. Really quick, we're going to flop over to 108.4, which is the TEB VOR, which is only 0.5 nautical miles away from us. Now, this DME marker is going to pick up whatever is your active nav source. So it's important to recognize that you can have something separate from your main active nav source and pick up its DME. So if we do the same thing on Nav2 and switch to 113.1, 113.1 would be LGA. However, it is not in range from here. When it becomes in range, it'll automatically detect and it would show up and we'll have our bearing pointers. But because our nav source is Nav1 and it's in loc mode, we are going to see TEB of 108.4 and 0.5 nautical miles. So if we go to our other PFD settings, this is where we can bring in our wind option. There's wind option 1, 2, and 3. Of course, it's really hard with no wind data because we're static on the ground, but once flying, you can see the difference between them. I like option 3, and what's nice is this will persist, so that setting will be there. Same thing with your AOA. If you want to enable the AOA indicator so you can see it, it is there. That's your angle of attack. Many pilots like to fly angle of attack over speed because based on your configuration and the flying of the wing, this will tell you whether or not you're close to stall, as opposed to having to calculate multiple different stall speeds mentally based on angle, speed, and flaps configurations. Under your altitude units, you can set the meters marker, which will bring in meters overlay. Everything's still done in feet, but it does tell you in meters what the equivalent is. You have your inches in HG for your baro, or you can go to HPA. So now that we've covered all the PFD settings, you have your OBS, which obviously is grayed out. This is also where suspend would show up because we are not actively in a navigation using the FMS. So if you change your active nav source, this is going to drive which information is feeding the HSI, which is also driving the autopilot. Here, now that we've switched to VOR2, we're getting Nav2 DME2 numbers being fed in instead. As soon as we go to FMS, this is the GPS information, and of course, since we have nothing loaded in, we're getting no DME. But you can see we still pick up the TEB, Nav1, and the DME for it via the bearing pointers. So that way you could still be under FMS, but you could be tuned into a VOR on Nav1 or Nav2 and still be getting a DME distance to those navigational aids. When we come over to the sensors page, this is, I guess, more game-based. There are two, and you would be able to pick between the two. Of course, these don't fail, so it's just there for continuity. Same thing with the AHRS. You have the left side and the right side. You'd be able to pick between the two of them. I do like to just cover that there is a couple of items that would be handled from the GTCs, and it's not directly in something called the PFD. So if we come down to the items, you can see the speed bugs. So you can definitely get from sim your speed bug values, so it's measuring the weight, and then that weight is what's going to allow us to set those to be all on, and it's going to pull this data from the table. So when we look here again, you'll see that now our speed bugs have been loaded in. The other one that's important is when it comes to the timers. So when you go to your utilities page, there are a few items that apply here. One of them is the minimums. So if you did have your approach set up and set in your minimums, baro 250 feet, then by turning that on, it will activate on the PFD. And then the other one I like to point out is the timer. So when you have a timer running, like a count up, we can hit the start. We can now see the timer running. So those are kind of the pages that affect the PFD without calling out PFD. Well guys, we're going to go ahead and cut that here. Hopefully this helps you with getting to know all the PFD settings and what they do here in the HJet version 2. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and come along next time. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.